look back
2 or 3 minutes to let the field through.
The top half of the field through, yes, exactly. So, but look, you could hardly fit more cars on the circuit as they come from the Porsche curves up toward the 4 chicanes at the end of the lap. A double left-right combination onto the start-finish straight, and then the cars cannot power away. They're supposed to be in 2x2 formation. Not always easy through these twisters, but they've got to wait and look at the lights on the starting gantry up ahead, and it seems like a very quick start indeed from the front row. And Mr. John of B taking the lead, but behind, the rumble is massive. We have our door open to get some air in, but the challenge in the Duckhams car goes to the front of the field, so Jacques Nicolet proving his modern racing credentials.
Sweeping around the outside, the number 50 Chevron, and makes up at least one place away from the grid. Jumps Lola T70. There's another, there's another, there's another T70, there's another, there's 3 more Chevrons.
Ferrari, that was what we expected to pick the way out of the pace. Unfortunately, Sam Hancock's brought the Alfa Romeo into the pits, so big shame. We wanted to see that really picking its way up the order. But the 2 cars in the front row with Mr. John of B and Jacques Nicolet, but in the reverse order. No, it's gone back again. Yeah. So the Ligier back into second place. It's changed twice since the start of the race. So one's clearly better at one part of a corner, one to the other. So Duckhams' car right in the mix, but the others keeping them honest with the 3rd place, number 33 Lola, trying to hang on as best it can. Richard Mille and the driver we saw at the wheel, Carlos Tavares.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic opening couple of corners for this race. And that leaves us with a mouth-watering prospect. It is the Duckhams car, or the Duckhams Ford, ahead of the Ligier Ford, both with Cosworth DFV power. And, you know, that's all part of the mix here as well. You're starting to get contemporary Formula 1 engines coming into endurance racing. And
this little Chevron, the white car with the blue stripe behind the white and black, dark blue, is being Lola's been driven very well. Maurizio Bianco and Davide Mazzoleni, that's the car that's been picking off those ahead of it. But the trouble is, each car it passes, the next one to pass is that little bit faster, that little bit more difficult. But it's the Duckhams car leading the way from the Ligier that's won both of the races so far. But unfortunately, in the pit lane, spotted it coming in, is the Alfa Romeo that we really would love to get back out on the track. Sam Hancock will drive it very well, sharing with Alexander Wittweger, but that lovely 33 TT, we want it back out on the circuit.
Change of lead again at the 2nd chicane. Mr. John of B goes back in front in the Ligier JS3. And right behind him still Jacques Nicolet, the Lola T70 Mark III-B of Carlos Tavares right behind him. That's that dark blue and silver stripe car. The Ford GT40, Chris Ward in 4th position. In 5th place, another T70. That's Tony Seiler, who raced here at Le Mans when he was an FIA GT racer for many years. And the Lola tries to go the long way around the outside of the Ligier. Ligier was having a little look at the inside of the Duckhams Ford. That didn't work. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lead cars all together. Then a little gap back to the number 50 Chevron, that B19 with its FVC engine.
This is the closest race we have had all meetings so far. Normally at this point on the opening lap, 1 or 2 cars might have escaped at the front, but we've got 7 cars almost nose to tail. And the little Chevron trying its best, despite his lack of horsepower, to keep up. But the car that started second, Jacques Nicolet, still in the lead of the race. But as we've seen, challenges can come in all sorts of instances. We could have the Lola in the lead very soon indeed.
Lungy lock up there from Jean Guittard, Mr. John of B. Deep down the inside, and with a very Jackie Ick style helmet there, the dark colour with the white band around the eye hole.
Okay, who's the charge? The yellow T70. Stewie Hall on board is really putting on a challenge. He's already gained about 4 positions in this race. I fancy he could get right up to the very sharp end, and sharp it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Stuart Hall, very successful sports car racer. Didn't have the best of fortunes here at Le Mans. Had a really good run with Martin Short's Dallara LMP1 car a decade or so ago, I guess.
Well, he's made another place, and what I'm starting to sense is Jacques Nicolet is getting away, but I think the fastest driver in the race is Stuart Hall in that now 5th place Lola T70. He's dispatched 2 of his rivals. That little Chevron hanging in very, very well behind, but when it comes to straights, I'm afraid it's goodnight Vienna.
Yeah, exactly. The Chevron with its 2-litre engine closing right in through the twisty stuff. It weighs probably no more than 2/3 of what maybe even half what a 270 does. And he's looking down the inside. Here we go, down the inside. And that's a neat little slot through. Maurizio Bianco goes ahead of Pierre-Alain France in a number 70 T70, appropriately numbered.
Yeah, Chris Ward has been passed for fourth place, so the yellow Lola in the hands of Stuart Hall up into fourth. His next target is the best qualifying of the Lolas. That's Carlos Tavares, the black one with the silver stripes up over the roof. But hats off to that Chevron driver in number 50 because he has really put in a fantastic performance. That's Bianco.
Yeah, Maurizio Bianco. More Chevrons here. There's the Team Gunston car. So that's an all Chevron battle, in fact, isn't it? All three. And that is not too far behind. That's just inside, just outside the top 10. No, in fact, it's not. It's just inside the top 20. Number 14 car is currently shown as in 16th place. So that's 14th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th make that as they now catch the number 32 car. But with the yellow Lola badge on the nose.
But as Martin and I have established, it doesn't matter if you're fighting over 42nd position. When you're out on this wonderful circuit, it looks like that little Chevron B8, it's got its top of its door coming a little bit loose. That'll be a bit unsettling for the number 17 crew.
Well, frameless door, though, so that's the Sandy Watson and Martin O'Connell car. Frameless door, so it is just a sheet of plastic, essentially, the quote, window, unquote. So, yes, at high speed, low pressure will pull it out from the door frame, as long as it doesn't pop out, and even if it does, who cares, it's only a bit of plastic.
Oh dear, the number 63 Porsche has just reported to the pits as well, so while this fantastic lead battle is going on, a few of the cars feeling a little bit worse for wear after in this, the third race. That was one of the Porsche 908. Shame to lose them because they're so overshadowed by what followed in the Porsche 917.
And that's a shame, actually, because that Langhack 908, look at that, no rear wing at all, but he's also got a box full of neutrals. Could hear him revving away, and unfortunately, there's just nothing at home.
And the Ford GT40 slightly sliding back into the grasp of the number 70 Lola that's picked its way forward with France at the wheel, but Chris Ward will hang on as long as he can. But the Ford GT40 really was superseded by the T70. It was such a popular car and raced on for year after year in Europe. Looked brilliant, sounded brilliant, but handled so well. Very kind. That looks like it's just got come out of the factory. And for Romain Dumas, yes, that Romain Dumas.
Yeah, it probably has just come out of the factory.
Oh, yes, of course it has.
Out of the factory's museum. Yes, exactly right.
So change of fourth position there. Up goes France. No, in fact, that's fifth place, isn't it, of course?
Yeah.
And Chris Ward, he is going to be outgunned, but he's going to hang on as long as he can. And Chris Ward...
So, no, they picked up another spot because there's...
Carlos Tavares.
That's Carlos Tavares, who was in third place. He was in fourth place, in fact, because Stuart Hall's gone by everybody except for Jacques Nicolet. Stuart Hall is currently in second place. Yes, there he is. There's the race leader. Jacques Nicolet in the Duckhams Ford, Stuart Hall. So it's yellow. Yeah, I love a yellow car. Jacques Nicolet with his pink helmet on. Stuart Hall in second place in the yellow and green Lola T70, and in the yellow and green Ligier, one of the few non-Gitane liveried Ligiers that I can think of. Stuart Hall comes through into the lead.
Yeah, but I tell you what, Martin, between Indianapolis and Arnage, you can see Jacques Nicolet looking in the mirror to look left, and what he didn't realise, up the inside to the right, driver's right, came Stewie Hall, so he worked that out. Must be very, very confident in the handling to get around Arnage, a tight corner from the tightest of lines.
Well, Stuart Hall playing the clever game by not having the headlights on to alert the man in front to his presence. So Jacques Nicolet in second place, and Mr. John of B, Jean Guittard, in third place. And
look at his eyes. He's the race leader is looking in his mirror, which is on to driver's left.
There he is.
Oh, I thought it was the other yellow car. Were you in the group?
Yes.
You might not have even realised there were two yellow cars behind him.
I'm pretty certain he was looking for the Ligier behind him of Mr. John of B, and it wasn't the Ligier that jumped him. It was Stuart Hall in the Lola T70. And another spin from the 33 car of Carlos Tavares, and in fact he respins on the grass. So he recovered here, or he recovered at Arnage, backed it off here at the Porsche curves, and then rejoined, spun from the grass, and that's another...
Little Chevron.
Yeah, that's a Chevron. Is that 55? So he rejoins, spins on the grass. We just saw that happening, and not everybody can avoid him. That is a big shunt.
That's Franco Miners, who's been racing for a very long time. Nothing he could do about it. The Italian racer just presented, I mean, turning into the first part of the Porsche curves, you're already right on a knife edge, and then to find a car facing the wrong way in the track, unable to get around it. So there's Franco out of the car. He is clearly fine, but look at the distortion at the rear end, and a huge distortion at the front end for Carlos Tavares.
Nasty, nasty shunt. Luckily, being British built, it's a right-hand drive car. because as Tavares loses it on the grass here, he guns it up. He thinks, OK, I'm good. And then, oh, look at that, almost able to avoid it. Unfortunately, though, in that yellow number 65 car, Franco Miners, it was, however, left rear corner, so about as far away from the driver as we can get. Now, we will have a slow zone, almost guaranteed, coming through the Porsche curves.
Safety car as well.
Safety car has been scrambled, so
that means Stuart Hall's advantage, which he'd built up over nearly 3 seconds, will be brought down to nothing. You can see smoke from our commentary box, and that is the bodywork of this Lola T70 dragging as it comes into the entrance to the pit lane, shedding further bits of bodywork. Franco Miners, well, that was really unfortunate. Absolutely nothing he could do. Came around the corner as fast as, of course, he should have been pushing on in his Chevron B16. Couldn't have a chance to go to the left. Another car in front of him just managed to squeeze by. And how, in fact, only one car hit Carlos Tavares' Lola, I do not know, but that's a major miracle, I'd suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Tavares was very fortunate to get away with that. Luckily, his car was parked again, passenger sort of front left corner, heading towards the oncoming traffic. But you don't need to be too much of a mind reader to think what could have happened if somebody had hit him head-on and gone over the top of the car. Well, he drags the car into the pit lane. We are going to need a rescue vehicle, I'm afraid, for Franco Miners' car. Carlos Tavares.
Well, it's good that's off the circuit. So an unfortunate incident, but hopefully the safety car period won't be too long. They'll have to get out and brush the circuit there. There was a lot of fragments coming off the combination of the Lola T70 and the Chevron B16.
Now, we're 9 minutes into the race. One safety car lap is going to take us another 6 or 7 minutes. There's Carlos Tavares walking away from what remains of his Lola T70. You can see the glass fibre bodywork taking a big old hit, but it's the debris, it's the fluids, it's the bits of broken metal and so on down there that we'll need sweeping up. So we'll need our marshals to get out there with the brooms, and they'll be happy to do so. Safety cars, 3 safety cars here because of the long lap at Le Mans, so they will bring the field round. We're going to need a flatbed to get rid of that as well. Now, we've had a couple of pit callers, but the pit lane is not yet open. We saw yesterday in one of the races when we had a safety car scrambled quite close to the pit lane opening time, they went, OK, open the pits.
It was a very wise decision. We've got other cars coming into the pit lane now. These are the tail enders. I think we've literally got to the back of the pack as the cars come around. Carlos Tavares head hanging, so he's upset. So maybe they've decided to do that anyhow.
OK, but we have not been notified. No. Now, I don't...
No, he's got cramp. That driver's got cramp. You can see he can hardly stand upright. Well, that's a wise thing to do, but it will incur a penalty. But it's far better than having him stay out there with cramp and possibly losing control into one of the corners. Absolutely
right. I think those that are coming in are force majeure pit stops because the driver can't take much more of this. There's Carlos Tavares, walks back in. Sorry about that. And he was sort of OK. It's just that he gave it a little bit more of a bootful on the grass than even this dry grass will take. And that was kind of really a bit of a rookie error, I'm afraid.
Yes, it's unfortunate other cars had to be caught up in that. Still the last few cars coming through, one of the Chevrolet Corvettes, rumbling past our commentary position. But it's over and out for 33. He'd already lost a handful of places with the first spin. Well, in fact, he was in 3rd place. He fell down to about 7th, and then in trying to keep going again, unfortunate double rotation.
And what he was trying to do was not meander slowly back onto the track, because the Porsche curves, as you saw there, is not only very quick, but the lines of sight are fairly restricted because of the high walls around it and because of the way you're weaving through those corners. And so he wanted to be moving as quickly as he could do back up to speed. Unfortunately, just gave it a little bit too much gas.
So another Chevron B16, this one uninjured, thank goodness, but Jean-Pierre Cazelot in conversation. The car will go out, but suddenly to be struck by cramp on this very hot afternoon would have been actually quite scary. It's bad enough if you hop in a swimming pool and get cramp and you have to try and put your foot on the bottom to straighten it out. As you can see, other pit visitors as well, but still waiting for A, the clear up of the circuit, and B, for the MkII to get across the track and remove that Chevron, battered and tattered as it is from the rear. Maybe the damage not as much as it looks from the back, but looking at that's just the rear bodywork that's askew, but unfortunately it was a front-end contact and the damage will be there.
It was, the rear suspension will have been pretty much torn off the car, just like the left front corner was torn off this one. And again, hats off to, in fact, hats on and sunscreen on and everything else in this weather to the boys and girls in orange who are keeping all the racers safe, trying to deal with the track. Yeah, what's that? Feeling what it is. I think, actually, that is coolant rather than oil. And that'll be from the nose of the Lola, which was spewing its guts out all over the track. The helmet is among our pit callers. This is safety car B, one of our 3 safety cars. This is the one that comes on from the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight. We have one that comes out from the pit exit, one that comes on the first chicane on the Mulsanne, one that is scrambled from our Nage. And they group the field together so that people don't have an 8-mile track to try and catch up with the safety car. Stuart Hall, the race leader, stays out. Now, they're not going to make any miscues by coming in before they're allowed to. The safety car will stay out, you would think, Bruce, for another lap, because...
Absolutely so, but I've just been having a quick look to see who has made great strides forward. Number 78 started down on the inside of the 15th row, Andrew Cocotti, and the pit window is now open.
Yep.
But Andrew Cocotti has gone from, what did I say? It was back in 29th position. He's got up to 8th, and he'll hand over to Ross Hyatt as late as he possibly can. This is one of the very late entries, but that Chevron B19, very pretty, but very, very effective.
Safety car's out, and the pit lane is open. You have to stop now. If you don't stop now, just don't bother stopping. You're just giving everything away. And listen to this, you know, it's an idle. You can't turn it off because it'll never restart. So this has permission to stay at idle. It's idling at something like 16,000 RPM, just whistling away there. So everybody else under control of the race director. It's the other car that Romain Dumas is down to drive. Our race director, by the way, our race director from the 24 Hours, mentioned this earlier, is marshalling here this weekend. Eduardo Freitas started his career as a marshal at the Portuguese Grand Prix circuit at Estoril, and continues to marshal as well. He's part of the Marshals Club down there at Estoril, and as well as being a race director, first for the World Touring Cars, now for the World Endurance Championship, and therefore for the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He directs a whole load of other races as well, but he's having a weekend off here at the Historic, just marshalling with colleagues from Estoril.
Well, it's amazing how many people do start in marshalling, because Gerard Neveu, right up at the sharp end, he's famously in some photographs when Formula One was first at Paul Ricard, effecting a rescue when one of the cars went over the barriers up at Scene, and big strong fella, he probably picked it up and carried away under his arm. So 66, this is the car, Robert Kaufman's car, across from the States, that didn't really get going at the start of the race, but now they've got a chance during this pit stop window to effect it. But really, it was only the cars from the very tail end of the grid that were passing the pits when the pit window was open. All the ones we can see just had gone past pit entry. Now we've got another handful of cars diving their way in, but for most of the leading cars in this race, all the leading cars in this race, they're behind the safety car, and it's slow as they come around, and Martin's having an exciting moment.
Well, do you know, I'm heartbroken that we're not seeing the Alfa Tipo 33, because I've never seen one of those races. I've never seen a 512 race either. I've seen them static, I've seen them at car shows, but I've never seen or heard one go by trackside. I might even, when it comes past us, just have to nip out the back door for a moment just to hear him power out of the chicane, even behind the safety car. And that's one of the great things about historic racing. You know, we talked about that, particularly with Plateau 1, 2 and 3, cars that were redundant before we were born. You know, you get a chance not just to read a story and see a picture of it, but you get a chance actually to see the cars moving. And to all the teams that bring cars here, no matter how old or middle-aged they are, because none of them are young in any of our plateau here, some of them are the better part of a century old. To all the teams that bring the cars here, it's a labour of love, no question about it. You just don't get anything other than pure enthusiasm from the people involved with these cars, and it's just wonderful. And it's a two-way loving, isn't it? You know, they love the cars as much as we love them. Probably an awful lot more, because they've got even more sweat, blood and tears invested than us fans.
Absolutely so. And now the second batch of cars from behind the second of the safety cars, or is it the third, is now disgorging. Not all of them, but most of them, the sensible ones, are coming in to make their pit stops. We saw the lead safety car. It's got the leaders, but in front it's still got the little Dita Masso Pantera that will need to move out of the way. And I'm sure they will all pour into the pits, apart from those who know their teammate is not as quick, and they also have to have a hunch when the safety car will come in. That is the absolute key.
Well, the problem is that a race lap is 5 minutes, a safety car lap is going to be 10 minutes. not stopping, it doesn't matter how much slower your teammate is, not stopping is a major error. Look at the dark green helmet there with the Winfield logos on, exactly as he raced in his final Grand Prix, which was at Brands Hatch years ago. Jacques Lafitte, his Grand Prix career ended in a first corner shunt against the barriers at the inside of Paddock Hill Bend.
But it doesn't look as though he's going to get into the car because Philippe Van Drom is staying on board. He's ready, but your time has not yet come, Jacques. That is a massive shame. Anyway,
no. Now the owner is making his way out of the car, and Happy Jacques has already gone to take his gloves off. So I'm sensing actually it's not a happy car. I think that is what the problem is that it's not a happy car, rather than he just doesn't want Jacques Lafitte to drive it, because you wouldn't ask him to drive it if you didn't want him to drive it. And well, that's a real shame. That's a shame for the car, a shame for the team, and a shame for Jacques Lafitte as well. Oops.
Matters not really, they'll get that fired up, and he lost a second, and at this point, having done the pit stop under the safety car, that means he's probably getting an awful lot of time on those that do not come in when the safety cars are out.
I have absolutely no understanding why anybody would stay out and not come in behind the safety car, unless the teams have been told something we haven't, is that it will be one further lap. Well, there is Jacques Lafitte. And a rare weekend off, because normally he's a French TV Formula 1 commentator, so he should be doing colour for the British Grand Prix, instead of which he was here this weekend driving a car actually that probably predates his sports car racing career, doesn't it? Because he sort of came in the mid-70s Matra era, as opposed to this sort of late 60s, early 70s era. So I think this probably predates his sports car racing career.
It now looks here, Martin, as though the race is over. Absolutely not. If you're just switching on to catch the penultimate race of the 2018 Le Mans Classic, these are cars waiting for the light to go green at the end of the pit stop. We've got a safety car out in this race for 1966 to 1971 Le Mans races. We'd hope to have Jacques Lafitte on it. There he is in the garage, and now our front runners coming into the pit lane with the Duckhams car at the front of the race, and one of the Chevrons. Why would that number 80 Chevron stay out?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. That car was had just been lapped by the leaders. Stuart Hall in the yellow Lola T70. He's followed in by Jacques Nicolet, a businessman from Le Mans. His business is racing cars. He's Mr. Oak Racing, and as well as having previously run his own teams, he also now builds Ligiers.
Well, just a rare sight of Royal Goethe about to climb in a car that's not covered in Gulf livery. It's just the pale yellow, the bright yellow livery. It used to be raced by Pico Troberg. A lot of Swedish racers would run with a yellow livery, and that will be out very soon. But the car that started on pole position...
That is, Mr. John B, that is a proper period Jackie X look, isn't it, that helmet?
So.
I really love that. I've looked at it a couple of times, never seen it head on. I'm still not sure that it's not a replica of a Bell twin window. I'm not sure that anybody does one, but it looks like that twin window helmet that Jackie X used to wear. So all of our leaders are in. The top 16 came in off the same safety car queue, which is really good news, because that means it hasn't broken up our lead group of races.
And this little Chevron B19, Bianco and Mazzoleni driven very well. And in answer to your question, behind the safety car, they're doing laps in 7 minutes 30 or thereabouts. But Stuart Hall has handed over.
I'm not sure they've done a full safety car lap, though.
That could be possible. I think they probably, have. I think it just picked them up when they went. They just passed pit entry when the safety car signal came. So hopefully it picked them up at the first corner. So now they get to pit exit, and now they've got to wait.
Yeah. And now, unfortunately, the engine keeps idling, but there is no heat reduction through the radiators. So Keep Europe have already lost one T70, the black car of Carlos Tavares, which caused this safety car period, and the white car with the blue stripes there that Jacques Lafitte was due to take over, that's also gone AWOL. And I think almost certainly, Bruce, if we talk to a lot of teams that have had problems with cars, the extraordinary temperatures this weekend will definitely have played their part in it. You know, racing cars are marginal on braking, modern or ancient, and the higher the ambient air temperature, and also, you know, with sitting in the heat, then idling round to the grid, then doing a running start, then going idling basically, or sort of driving reasonably quickly round to the main straight, stopping again, getting everybody in position. I think that put an awful lot of heat cycles through cars that they were ill cooled to deal with. And the
well,
Ligier being pushed away.
I was about to add, they're sitting in the heat at pit exit, waiting for that red light you can see at pit exit to go green, and the 69 car that was running in second place started on pole position.
I guarantee that car has just overheated and it's got fuel vapour problems.
But he seems to be further up the queue. The yellow Lola that came in from the front of the field with Stewie Hall was about 10th in the line, with Roald Goethe having taken it over. So hopefully that, with its all-enveloping bodywork, will be able to keep cool enough to keep fired up. So behind one of the safety cars, we had the Di Tommaso, and it stayed behind the safety car, but all those cars behind it, as are the winner of the first 2 races, Mr. John of B, who was sharing with Soil Irie, but didn't look this time as though he was going to give Soil a go. A lot of the drivers, the older drivers, they do the day races and leave their co-drivers to do the night race.
Yep.
And I'm afraid that has been parked up. But the little Duckhams special sitting there, yellow and blue, ahead of the number 70 Lola. So, in fact, look further down the order. The yellow Lola should be at the front of the queue, but it's not. It's about another 5 or 6 cars off the right-hand side of the screen.
But we have got an all-Lola T70 battle, a martini-coloured car ahead of the red and white car, and the safety car queue. This is a very short queue with a Howmet jet turbine coming through at the back of it, that one-off car, so and green, there it goes green.
Out of the pits.
So they just join the queue. Now, the back of that safety car queue all come in. 45, the Gordini we saw, the Alpine rather, we saw just leaving last time round. That's come back in. The Scuderia Filippinetti 512 has come back in. So lots and lots of cars now taking the opportunity that hadn't previously stopped to come in off that safety car queue. And that will actually pretty much complete our pit stoppers.
Safety car in this lap, message just flashed up on the screen. So the Chevron's
strapped.
Flap, flip, flip. Plief, plof, iplaf.
So, easy for you to say. Ferrari 365 GTB Ford cam, 4-cam, otherwise known as a Daytona. So this was another of the cars that Sam Hancock was down to drive.
There's quite a lot of horse trading at this event. The drivers are down for many cars, and sometimes just actually the sheer logistics of getting out from one race and trying to get into the next one. It's at some circuits you can do it, but here there's quite a big distance between the collection area and Parc Fermé and the paddock, and just simply getting from one to another.
And the other thing is mechanical frailty and accident damage, either earlier in the races or in qualifying. I spoke to a couple of drivers who were due to be here, and in fact the cars never even made it into the races because they had problems in qualifying. So this car is, it would seem, out of action as well. No driver on board. Here comes the Corvette. This is a C2 Corvette, or the Stingray as it's otherwise known. Safety car 2 pulls off at the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight.
Well, this is the one, of course, Martin, that came past with just 4 cars on its train, but everybody else has now come out of the pit, and the train is much, much longer. But the important thing, as far as I'm concerned, is that the Stuart Hall Lola that worked his way up into the lead of the race appears to be about 6th in the line behind the best of those that's made a pit stop. So it's lost a lot of ground in the pits, which is actually very unusual at the Le Mans Classic.
Look at that 917. We talked in the previous race about narrow frontal area. That's got a small frontal area because it's about twice as wide as the back as it is at the nose. The rear track is absolutely enormous. It's got that sort of periscope mirror on the roof as well. And this is the Fink and Dumas Porsche 908/2. That's having a little bit of an issue as well. They are making the driver change. Have they not already done it? No, this is a timed pit stop for that car. Don't think that was Romain Dumas getting on board, so maybe they haven't actually changed the driver, just doing their time stop. So that Porsche 917 right behind a 911. And again, you know, in period, you watch the Le Mans film from 1970, the footage there, you're going by 911 road car looking 911s, a T or an S or whatever it is, you know, in a 917, in a Ferrari 512. You know, these prototypes blatting past at the sharp end of 250 miles an hour, and the road cars doing fully half that.
You just imagine the wash.
Yeah,
pass close. You're just, I'm trying my best. Don't blow me off the circuit.
Well, let's identify. Oh, I can't identify. It's not on my entry list. Car number 6. Is it on my final entry list, or have I not got a number 6?
Let me race to try and help you. I've got Porsche 917 Christian Limmer, German racer, number 6.
I was thinking that the orange Porsche was number 6. So the safety car pulls off. All safety cars pull off together. That's, again, something that's hard to synchronise for the race director. And the whole field goes green. And if there wasn't a heat haze, there would be behind car number 1, the Howmet jet turbine, the Howmet TX to give it its name, from 1968. Cubic capacity, no. It doesn't have cubic capacity. It has rotary fan capacity. I'm not sure how that's exactly measured in pounds of thrust, I think.
Roughly, I think is the answer to that. So Peter Vergely in the 917 Porsche leading this cluster of cars, but the effective race leader should be there. The yellow and blue Duckhams special coming through. It's got some other cars to try and get out of the way. There may be a bit of juggling, but the bright yellow Lola T70 that was leading in the race may not even come into the back of the shot until about now. There it is.
Look at the 917. You saw the moment he hit the brake, starting to weave down there. And the Howmet, again, Mark 1 Cortina rear lights, they were quite familiar to TVR botherers, but they're on the back of the Howmet as well. The 917, a very different kettle of fish, you know, that flat 12 motor, which went on to be so successful racing in world sports cars and in North America. And the Howmet, it'll take a time to get up to speed, but basically the longer the run, the more the helicopter turbine builds up its rotations again, and then it starts to ease away from the chasing pack. But as you can see in that Duckhams special, as the Howmet closes right in on the 917, you can see why they thought a turbine engine would have been good for Le Mans, because the Porsche curves didn't exist. He'd have still been running straight through up the pit straight, and the long Mulsanne straight with no chicanes would have played really well to the Howmet. At the moment, despite the, you know, we talk about the old turbo era with the wait for the turbo lag, that's nothing. You know, you have to write in your diary a little note to the jet turbine to say, I'd like some power soon, please. He's got
now, no, then. I wanted it then.
He's got no throttle response, but on the straight, as we see the leader change once more.
So back to Jack Nicolet in the Duckhams special. He'd been stuck in behind. He knew he had to strike because some of his rivals have bottled up behind these other cars that, by dint of the safety car periods, have worked their way to the front, and now they're providing a barrier. The Howmet needed to disappear somehow.
Crikey.
Stayed on planet Earth and right in front of our commentary box. That could have been a massive concertina moment. But the Duckhams special, Jack Nicolet did the job. He knew he had to strike as soon as he possibly could. He didn't hang around, and some of his rivals are really getting bottled up behind him. Yeah,
and the Howmet is going to be a fantastic stopper in the bottle, isn't it? Because it's going to go steaming off down the straights, and then it goes around the outside of the 917 under braking, just drives clear around it. There's not much wrong with the Howmet chassis, but it's its throttle pickup that is, you know, you have to wire ahead and send funds in advance if you want power. So it's quite a hard thing to race on a track that is now considerably more windy than it would have been in period.
Well, that Porsche 917 that's sort of led away on the restart, if you will, is now tumbling down the order, going very slowly to let the rivals through. It's not in their battle, but the Howmet hasn't needed 2 invitations and is herring off to try and chase after the Duckhams special. Where is the Duckhams special? So far clear in the race in the hands of oh, hold on, there was a car. Just want to double check. In the background, there was a yellow car, possibly the race. Right. Well, race leader.
Yes.
Slowly out of 10 through, so we've lost him.
Well, we've just had a change of lead. The Howmet has just come by that number 51 car. That's the pale blue Lola T210. And he, in turn, has been passed by the yellow T70. Now, that's not the... is that Royal Goethe?
That's the Ferrari.
Is that the Ferrari?
Royal Goethe is out of the back of the picture.
He is way out the back, isn't he? So the Howmet at the moment hanging on to second. And again, the Lola trying to come back at him.
It's Carlos Monteverde who's now taken the lead. This Ferrari...
All right, there's the Duckhams. So the Duckhams special is still leading. Okay, so...
My concern with the lots of yellow cars, but I thought he's so far clear, and then I saw some in the back, and I fancied I saw yellow and blue overlap. It was probably a blue car in front of a yellow one, but the Howmet in second place. Well, here we are into the final 10 minutes, and the places are changing thick and fast. And that Ferrari 512M, you said you'd never seen one race. Here's one at the sharp end.
I know, absolutely. And in Curie Belge colours as well, the bright yellow, but the Howmet, it's certainly no slouch under braking. It's got good cornering grip. Yellow flag's out because somebody's Chevron has parked itself at the side of the road. Jack Nicolet leading in the Duckhams Ford. Duckhams just relaunching their classic oil lines actually in the last month or so. Those familiar blue and yellow cans with the Q on. which every motorist of the 60s, 70s and 80s knew intimately.
Dab behind their ears, obviously, for race meetings.
Multi-grade oil. And there's the helmet, sweeps around the golf club. The golf club building, by the way, designed by the same man who designed the pit buildings here at Le Mans. One of the members of the ACO governing committee as well, the very well-known local architect. And here's the Ferrari on the inside. And again, you can see the flat 12 just picked up from Mulsanne corner and hauled its way past the helmet, which is now still building momentum in the way of a 2CV, say. It's not instant, you've got to work at it. Here comes the T70, he sneaks up the inside into Mulsanne. Here comes the GT40 as well.
Yeah, Chris Ford making great progress, that GT40. Seems a little bit outgunned, but he's sticking in there, and the number 40, Lola T70, losing a little bit of ground around the outside into Indianapolis, but places are changing with every forthcoming corner. And
that Chevron is going with him as well, so they're both moving up the order. That's the Bianco Mazzoleni car, the little open Chevron. And in fact, we've just got a massive group. There's Raul Goethe in his yellow T70, and that car is currently in 11th place. So this is second through to 11th, from yellow car there to yellow car at the back of your shot. Those are all for position, and here comes the Chevron up the inside of the GT40, throws it through on the inside. That is a great move.
I'm very, very impressed with this pair.
Oh, and he's making another move as well, just as we go back to this replay of a change for third. The T70 Lola going up into third position. That was Pierre-Alain France.
Mazzoleni into Porsche curves is now going around the outside of the helmet. And how is he going to keep it on the island? But it's there that the nimbleness of that his car is just so effective. Looking up to second, third, fourth, fifth, about fifth place now. Fantastic.
The Chevrons now are just carving their way through all the big banger sports cars, and you sense perhaps that the Chevrons have got a bit more tyre and maybe a lot more brake left than the Ferrari, than the T70s. But this is our race leader in the Duckhams Ford, Pierre Nicolet. And another car overheating.
Yeah, that was another one that Carlos Tavares was down to drive. We're sharing with Richard Mille, but obviously Carlos is in the pits. That would be Richard Mille, who's out of the race. So that is very bad news indeed. And it's not just the number 50 Chevron that's making advances. Tuck on his tail, Dirk Peters, German racer in the little aquamarine Lola, also thoroughly enjoying the race action. But look, the clock has counted down almost towards the end of the race. Final 7 minutes, leading the way. It started the outside the front row. Jacques Nicolet in the Duckhams Special. He managed to very quickly on the restart, when the safety cars withdrew, find his way back past about 4 or 5 tail enders who were in front of him, and then move away. Now he's got a Di Tommaso Pantera in front of him, a Group 4 runner. That should prove no opposition. But where are the cars in the background? Not even in shot as we look back to Tete Rouge.
Because they've got such an epic battle. And you're right, Jacques Nicolet, you know, led early on. He had the speed early on, and he hasn't lost the speed. Don't forget, raced here 2 or 3 years ago still, very recently. And so Jacques Nicolet knows the circuit well. There's Eduardo Freitas in the hat. That's at Marshall's post number 50.
It's so rare not to hear him talking. We love his little voices throughout World Endurance rounds, but hats off, what a gentleman there.
And in fact, shimmering in the heat haze as well is one of our regular World Endurance Championship FIA scrutineers, who's also Portuguese. So there
Learn from me, my boy, learn from me.
There is Eduardo Freitas. You will go a long way before you meet somebody who's quite as enthusiastic as you are, and Eduardo Freitas is right there at the top of the queue. So here is Jacques Nicolet then. Well, talk about an arch enthusiast. Jacques Nicolet, the man who bought the remnants of Pescarolo sports cars when they were up in a receiver's auction, and then turned around and handed the keys to Henri Pescarolo and said, Henri, your company is now your company again. He's so much of an enthusiast that his own Oak Racing team then bought the rights to construct Ligier cars after creating their own cars and cars for Morgan. And they now create Ligiers here at Le Mans. So this man is not just a good racer, he's a good businessman and a good egg as well. A thorough dyed-in-the-wool enthusiast. And this is going to be a very popular win, I think, if he can, and the Duckhams Ford can hold it here. Oh! Mr. Shift.
Yeah, we'll call him Mr. Anything, but anyhow, 62 years young and probably starting to feel just a tad older than that because it's very hot out there. But to be winning at the Mans, those years will fall away. But that was, as long as nothing goes wrong, Martin, it was almost to the second.
That almost was. To win a race in a one-off car, Alain de Cadenay's Duckhams Ford, which in period never quite had the development to produce these goods. to win it at home in Le Mans, and with a DFE crackling away behind you on a beautiful day like that, could there be anything better? If he's feeling any pain, then I'll be very surprised until the slowing down lap.
Number 48, again, you get cars that you don't see so much, and that's the Healy SR2. You forget that some of the British manufacturers had a little toe in the water here, didn't really work, but again, it was one of those cars that ran around midfield.
It looks like a Lola T69, doesn't it? It was almost a Lola T70, but all the, you know, if you saw it at a glance, you go, yeah, it's not a T70, it's somebody's made a T70 replica, and that's what the Healy SR2 very much looks like. In the background, people going karting at the Piste Alain Prost.
Just that'd be hot work on a day like today as well. But anyhow, hit in for a penny, in for a pound. Waved yellow flags down at the entrance to the Porsche curves. I've just spotted in the background. So hopefully nothing untoward that will interrupt the pace of the race leaders.
3 minutes, 20 seconds still to go. Here comes Jacques Nicolet in the background. We're watching, that's the SR2, the Healy SR2. No, it's not, that's GT40. It's having a little bit of a problem with itself. But Jacques Nicolet in the background.
It's the
it is the SR2.
Well,
yeah, that had a spin. Very well caught indeed. Our cameraman up in the gods. And Jacques Nicolet, no, wrong yellow car, Natasha is saying. Wait, 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 wait. Hold the shot. Here's the yellow car we were looking for. The SR2 recovers from its little spin. SR2 perhaps as successful as the TSR2 for aviation fans.
Ah, very good. So on to the final lap we go with 2.5 minutes remaining. This is our race leader, Jacques Nicolet, his lead on the line. Just waiting.
Yeah. Pierre-Alain France. Nicolet's got a problem. Pierre-Alain France in the T70 goes through for the lead.
Because it was 2-point-something seconds on the line. We heard the missed gear change. Yeah. Now we thought he was just stroking home. Then the missed gear change, something untoward, and suddenly the number 70 Lola to the front of the race. It's been very well driven in all the traffic after the restart, got stuck in and managed to break clear of the best of the chevrons. That Lola T70 in the hands of Pierre-Alain France and Erwin France, now in the lead of the race. A podium would still be great, but will it be a podium? Now fighting back, Jacques Nicolet. Maybe it's an intermittent gear change miss.
Hewland Mark 9 gearbox behind a Ford Cosworth DFE with a chassis designed by a Formula One engineer. You know, that is basically a mini Grand Prix car, not a mini Grand Prix car, a Grand Prix car with a closed bodywork over it. But it's very unusual that a Type 9, a Mark 9 Hewland goes astray, but it seems that he has missed a couple of shifts, and that may be fatigue. And third place closing right in as well in the Chevron, the number 50 car, the white car with the blue stripe up the centre of it, like the 70 car that leads. So this is our 1-2, third place car within 2 seconds of the leader.
I'm going to throw something into that mix as well. Jacques Nicolet, his last lap was 7 seconds slower than the two cars around him, the one in front and the one behind. He did have that Healy spinning near him, that might have lifted him off. But what we'd heard
yellow
before
flags,
then,
absolutely.
Yellow flags, it was also missing gear changes, but let's see what he can do. The power and the grunt of the Chevrolet-powered Lola T70 makes it pull away, but he's tucking down, he's very low, he's very sleek, he's probably hidden from the T70. Now he's pulled out, you can see him. Well, the other Chevron behind trying its best to catch up, and not so far.
That's Tony Seiler in fourth. The blue and yellow car, that's Tony Seiler in fourth place. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, nose to tail, to nose to tail, to nose to tail, to nose to tail. Jacques Nicolet, certainly when he went away from us last lap out of Mulsanne corner, nothing wrong with the sound of the DFE at all. But maybe he's just got an intermittent, as you say, maybe he's just struggling to cleanly get the gears. And in a battle this intense, if you miss a shift or, you know, any mistake that costs you a tenth of a second, then suddenly everybody's all over you. Now, it does look like he's adapted and is trying to win this down into Mulsanne corner. The Lola is the race leader, car number 70. Number 38, the Duckhams Ford is second. Right behind is the number 50 car. That is that white open Chevron in third position. That's your 1, 2, 3. They're covered by a little over a second at Mulsanne corner. And the fourth place car of Tony Seiler is about a second and a half behind them. Very slow car with a puncture. There's Tony Seiler at the top of the picture, the yellow and turquoise car. So that's your top four. Historic racing, yes, it's just old men in old cars that are worth millions, and they don't really push them very hard, except it's not. Entirely so.
So the nimble little Duckhams car is going to tuck in behind, but when you want nibble, you really want to be looking to the car in third place, the Chevron Mazzoleni. At the wheel, an attempt to go up the inside of the Corvette. Not enough space for three abreast to Arnage, but is it going to be a compromised exit for our race leader? Yes, it is. Erwin France going very wide, a much better exit line from the less powerful. It's got a DFE under the back, but there's less poke for the little little Duckhams car, but it's very, very neat and tidy around the corners. And what is the final third of the lap of Le Mans? It's a series of twisty corners.
But of course, he's going to have the advantage from the Porsche curves through to the Ford chicane and the Porsche chicane, but can he capitalise? This is for the win, the final win of Grid 5, of Plateau 5. Jacques Nicolet in second place. The checkered flag is waiting. Lola, Duckhams, Ford, Chevron. Lola and Chevron, two real mainstays of Group 5, Group 6 sports car racing, 2-litre sports car racing. And that's Paul Belmondo watching the action from trackside. And here comes our lead battle. The Lola just with its nose in front. Nicolet's going to have a lunge. He has a massive lunge down into the first of the two chicanes. That's where the lightweight, the nimbleness of the Duckhams Ford pays off, and through comes the Chevron as well. There's not enough room for the Chevron to win the drag race to line. Jacques Nicolet couldn't afford a missed shift there. He didn't miss a shift. Victory for Jacques Nicolet out of the final corner. The Chevron up to second place, and the Lola T70 in third. There is your podium, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you finish a 45-minute historic motor car race with 3 podium positions changing hands in the run out of the final 2 corners.
Absolutely astonishing, and really a huge amount of applause should be thrown the way of all 3 of those drivers. I think the Mazzoleni, Bianco driven Chevron that came second, it was fighting with far less armament, but the precision took it up to second place. But for Jacques Nicolet, 62 years young, had that problem when the race was in the bag, but he got the Duckhams special to the finish. But it required bravado and guts to make the dive up the inside of the France Lola T70. There they are coming in close together, but they couldn't have been closer together. No. And so Martin and I absolutely loved that final lap of the race.
Well, there's the blue and yellow car, the Seilers in 4th position. Confirmation that ahead of Chris Ward in 5th spot. So Jacques Nicolet claims victory at the last by a whopping near 0.7 of a second over the Bianco Mazzoleni Chevron, with the France-driven Lola T70 in 3rd place. The top 3 covered by 96 hundredths of a second. I'll remind you that it takes 7 hundredths of a second to blink the human eye. So that is a tiny, tiny margin across the line covered by the proverbial pocket handkerchief. That was a great end to what was a fascinating race. In the end, luckily for everybody, safety car didn't really affect the race too much, certainly for the leaders. And we've had a big group of cars now through past the checkered flag.
In fact, if anything, the leaders were bunched up, and it made them really fight. A few back markers ahead of them, and it compressed them. And therefore, the race to get clear and make a break was a joy to behold.